have our roll call, please?
Roll call.
Eric, you doing double duty here for?
I am, and I will just look and say that slightly different. We have Kenneth Jones, we have Elaine Clyde, we have Carol Spring, we have Neil Brennan, we have Lorraine Benefield, we have Edith Ramlow, we have Phyllis Peters, and we have Shavonna Reed, all in attendance, and April is excused.
Okay, thank you. All right, if everybody's got a copy of the minutes, has everybody read them and looked them over?
We did receive a couple of edits by
Okay,
mail. I believe one of them was, we had a couple of titles wrong. We'll update those.
okay, so we've got those corrections. Anybody else wanting to add any corrections? Okay, so do we have a motion to approve them as corrected?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Can you hear me?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, this is our open to the public. We are happy to have Kathy Gates here. She's here.
Okay, Kathy Gates, Inverness. I'm very pleased and told 3 of the BOCC members on how they voted last time to not include that little addendum at the 11th hour for the library policy. I was very curious about the phrase community standards, so I was doing some research and looking at it. It's considered a legal term, which means in order to determine whether something rises up to community standards or not, it's determined in a court of law with a jury. So I can just imagine if that had been included in past, every time you had a display that somebody was going to gripe about, it could have ended up in court to see if it was community standards. They need to be very careful before at the 11th hour they decide to add something at the end that they know what they're talking about. So I think we really dodged a bullet on that one.
Okay. I don't believe we have any report of officers or standing workshops at this time. So we will now go to Eric for the budget. Is that what you wanted to start with?
Yeah, we can start with the budget. Everybody hear me? All right.
Can you hear me? Is it
Don't
on?
have it yet. Hello?
Hello.
Check on the microphones. I just want to make sure we're recording. Thank you. Okay. You all should have a printed copy. You got it last week in the email. They changed the formatting just a little bit from previous years, but it's basically exactly the same. I'll try to keep this simple overview, but we do have a lot of different pages just to kind of go through. Your first page is obviously the revenue sources. Those are the various revenue sources that, for those of you that have looked at it year after year, they should be familiar. Obviously, our number one source of revenue is ad valorem taxes. And we also have some other smaller little pools of revenue that come in throughout the year. And as you roll down towards the bottom, you see things like donations of the Friends of the Library. Those are estimates. One of the reasons, obviously, the question I get sometimes is, well, if the Friends raise, $40,000 to $60,000, why are you only accounting for 25? Remember, this is a revenue estimate. One late season hurricane could cut their revenue in half, so we don't anticipate getting that until it actually comes through. And of course, we also had the hurricane COVID that came through, so that really changed that year. So we only estimate a much smaller amount, around 25,000, and then we're very happy once other revenues come in, that they make donations, the budget gets adjusted throughout the year to accommodate for those additional donations. And then we have smaller things like copy charges and miscellaneous donations and things like that. And then all those revenue sources add up to get us our total revenue for the year. Anticipated revenue for the year. On the next page, you see we have, and of course, please interrupt me at any time if you have a question or a note that you just want some clarification on. Our program description, core objectives, those haven't changed. Those are core descriptions that don't change a lot from year to year. unless we have a major policy change or major issue or major project that we want to include. The next page is just a description of the actual staffing positions that we have at the library. As you'll see, the bottom line is we still have total number of positions 49. Those are the various positions. That means we have 13 part-time positions and 36 full-time positions to cover all 5 branches. And 3 of them are open 6 days a week. That you'll see there we have our own administrative staff, IT staff, and materials management and other acquisition staff. So we're kind of a self-contained unit. Yes, sir.
I've forgotten, what was your staff, say 10 years ago? Number.
Right.
Roughly.
In 2011 is when we started doing staff reductions. Prior to that, we were 64.
64.
Yeah, by the time we got to 2012, 2013, we were down to 49 positions, and we've been at that ever since. Now, we've changed the makeup slightly, as far as how many full-time and part-time we've had, or possibly what the position did due to just changes in job need and such, but it hasn't changed from the 49. And then you flip over the next page, you've got personnel services, so that shows you what the cost of those 49 staff are to our budget. It's gonna be about 2.4 million. If you look in the far right-hand column is your 22, 23. It's fiscal year 23 recommended.
Who recommends that?
We recommend, then it goes to the Board of County Commissioners, they set the millage, and then they approve the recommendation, unless they have something they want to change.
I have
Good
a question
question.
on the software maintenance, on the software troubleshooting maintenance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna go, actually, if you just want to hold it for a
Okay.
moment, we're gonna go through each section,
All right.
and that way we can correlate it to that section. Absolutely. So what you see on the same page is these are just the broad accounts on operating expenditures summarized in their totals. I won't go over that, but like I was just mentioning to Elaine, I would rather just get into the details for each one so that you guys have a simple understanding of the details under each category. And so if we flip the page, see that page, page number 6, I believe it is, the bottom left-hand corner. That's where we start the expenditure details. And at the top, you'll see some things like other contractual services. This covers anything where there's some sort of contractual service obligation. For instance, the new thing there that wasn't in a budget last year is something called Aspen Discovery Layer. We use Aspen, it's a placeholder. That is a digital content enhancement for our library catalog, but that's the actual cost of the implementation and contract to have them come and set that up for us. The actual cost of the product is $7,500 a year, which is in a different section, which I'll cover. But that digital content enhancement that takes our catalog, makes it more accessible, makes all the materials across the entire library more accessible, and provides more a richer experience and easier for people to find what they're looking for in the library catalog. But you also see things in there like fire alarm monitoring and our ground delivery. Ground delivery is for our interlibrary loans. When you request a book from another location, somewhere else in the state or elsewhere, that's what's covered. That covers that, and we do thousands of those a year. Then we have software as a service. Yours was maintenance, not software as a service, right? We'll get there. Yeah, software as a service are things like our Beanstack reading app, which you recently saw that got launched. Canva, which we use internally to produce a lot of in fact, this display up there was created with Canva. We use Canva a lot for displays, but also imagery, social media images, and other in-house signage. And of course, Communico, which is our new calendar program that we implemented this current year. And then that's actually online live now if you've gone to our website and checked out our online calendar. Some other terms you see there, it's like, what is Loomly? That's an
What
odd
is
name,
Loomly?
right? Loomly is the social media manager that manages all of our social media accounts. So instead of having to log in and log out of each individual type of account, for a better, more simple description, you put Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those different ones into one management module, so you can manage what goes on in those all from the same dashboard.
When you say you, do you mean one staff person or all of your staff?
One for now, but one of the, but she also has someone that helps her a little bit. Social media by county policy is pretty limited, so we can't have too many people with hosting privileges.
Okay, that's good.
They keep it locked down. Loomly helps us with that a little bit because it creates another layer. We're working on at some point being able to expand that to some degree, but we have to move
Okay.
slowly because it's, again, because of the county policies. A larger one down at the bottom there of software as a service is public print PC management workshops. That was actually in last year's budget, but that was a project that did not get completed this year. We just had too much going on and could not get to that project. You'll see that public PC print management noted in several different accounts because there's several different parts to it. Part of it's software as a service, part of it's hardware, part of it's installation, and part of it is monthly maintenance fees. But basically what that project is, if you don't recall from last year, is we're replacing all of the public print management, and that's for all of the computers, in public computers in our libraries where people print. But they also need to copy, they also need to fax, they also need to scan. This is a project that will bring all of those together in a single kiosk so that they can do that. We're also hoping for some additional features like print from your own device, which has been very requested across the board. But also, and I'm hoping this works right off the bat, but there's also a print from home feature that we're asking for, which would allow you to send a document to your account, to your library account, and you print it to, and then you could, when you walk into the library, you go up to the kiosk, put in your card number, and print your document. So there's some cool features. We just got to get the project rolling. That's one of the first ones on our list for this year as we hit October running. Janitorial is always there. We do contract out our janitorial services, and we just got we're in process of getting a new contract signed. That just went out to bid this year for the next 3 years, so we'll have a new janitorial services coming in. Travel and per diem, those are just our travel to different conferences for our library association, also workshops, our Sunshine State Library Leadership program, which Debbie's going to talk about a little bit later. And TBLC, of course, we provide workshops for different staff, and this is their travel to go to those events. The travel mileage, that's all local. That's the travel and mileage that staff get reimbursed driving between branches, other government entities within the county. That's all internal county mileage. And again, that's for the full year. Communications, that's of course our data services for all 5 locations, and telephone services, including internet service at all 5 locations. And postage, that speaks for itself. We don't send a lot, but we do try to send what we can. That's come down considerably. It's probably about 35% of what it used to be years ago, because obviously we send as much email and other types of digital communication as we can to not send. But sometimes we do have to send the hard invoice if someone hasn't brought something back and things like that. Or what we've actually picked up with here recently, which Taylor will talk about a little bit more later, is being able for folks to get their library cards, and they may not physically be in the building, so we're mailing those, and then we have a new thing coming up with the schools that she'll talk about then. Utilities, we have very little control over that at all, so that just keeps going up. But just so you know, for 5 facilities, the electric, the garbage, the water and sewer, to manage our 5 locations costs almost $150,000 a year. I've talked to other library systems, they laughed at that number. Because that's actually small compared to what some larger systems have to manage. Imagine the college alone over there, Edith, is probably pretty amazing. Rentals and leases, that's copiers, our multi-function copy centers. That is primarily on the staff side. That is our I got the right name wrong, but that is our hubs that do all of our copying, scanning, and such on the staff side of things. We have 6 of those units, and we have a postage meter that we manage. Does a lot of that metering and stamping for us. Just with any other county entity, as being our own taxing district, we have to include a lot of things like our insurance costs, things like that. There'll be several of those types of accounts. You see the general liability claims. We have to set aside those. Those numbers are given to us by the county. And of course, vehicle maintenance. We did not get to replace our van this year that we had in the current year's budget, our main delivery van, cargo van. And that's simply because they can't find any cargo vans. As soon as cargo vans come available, they're gone. So we're just going to keep maintaining our current van until we can get one. They talked about some replacements, but we really need a cargo van. Other things just don't kind of fit what we do. But none of the major manufacturers have any cargo vans available. And so,
Does that maintenance cost include the gas?
no.
Okay.
Fuel is in here, and you'll see where that is at.
Okay, when you get to it, okay.
Yes,
Just wondering if that was-
absolutely. But yes, they give us an estimate, and that estimate was given at a higher cost than what it actually is right now. So we should be fine, depending on what happens, obviously.
Is the van in good condition? I mean, are we?
It's hanging in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not. It's
not
it's
unfit.
old. It's got 240,000 miles on it, so it's due to be replaced. But we're just gonna patch and pray for another year, and hopefully nothing major goes wrong with it. It did have a transmission replaced about 3 years ago, so it should be okay for a while. Hopefully, cross fingers crossed. Knock on wood. When we do get a new van, we've started to. I mentioned this last year. We want to actually get it wrapped with a very attractive promotional wrap, and we also want to add kind of like the RV awning that you see, so that during the week when it's used for deliveries, that's fine. But we could also use it on weekends for some of our larger outreach events because it's an empty cargo van sitting there on the weekends that we could utilize. So if it has that nice promotional wrap on it, and it also has the awning that can be pulled out, all of our outreach gear could be tossed into the van on a Friday, and we're at an outreach event like a Strawberry Festival or Manatee Festival or the Scarecrow Festival, really easily without having to move, stuff all of our vehicles with things and show up, right?
With Master Packers. I don't know what you're
Master Packers? Okay. That's true. It's all good. We have high hopes. We'll see where it lands. Then I get into maintenance of buildings. Obviously, all of our buildings need that. Homosassa is being repainted as we speak. I haven't been by to see, but that's something that's going on now.
It looks
We've
very
had
nice.
haven't been by. Are they looking better?
Yeah.
Very good.
It's nice and clean and really looks good.
Excellent. Yeah, the sun, unfortunately, in Florida takes its toll on everything, and Homosassa is, 15 years old, so it needed a little paint, especially on that east-facing side, where there's no shade at all, has really so it's good to see that getting done. But it's all kinds of different kinds of maintenance, door maintenance, exterior maintenance, fire extinguishers, fire alarms, chillers, HVAC. We have a lot of those throughout the year. That's why that's, I think, one of the highest maintenance costs there, and occasionally we have to replace units. Replacement units aren't included in that, but typically we've replaced a lot of units over the past 4 or 5 years, so we're in pretty good shape on replacement units, knock on wood. Pest control, painting, pressure washing, all those types of things. But maintenance does add up when you're maintaining 5 large buildings. Equipment maintenance, we do have one digital printer reader. That is it's over at Lakes. That's what you can see the microfiche on. If you wanted to see, we have can't remember how many years we have of the Chronicle over at Lakes, but I think it gets used mostly probably for obituaries and things like that. It's about 30 years of the Chronicle. So, back to the 30s. Yeah. We would like to see at some point partnering with the University of Florida, because they have a lot of the Chronicle on digitized and available, but we have, I think, the section that they don't have. So someone needs a grant somewhere along the line where we can work together and get what's on that microfilm off to be digitized. I had mentioned earlier, PC maintenance, that's your basic things. That's when a keyboard breaks or a monitor stops working, those sorts of things throughout the year. And then software maintenance and support. I think this is where Elaine had a question. You also see these a lot are the annual costs for these different I wouldn't call them subscriptions, but they're the cost of the software throughout the year, upgrades, and the like. So, question.
Can you hear me?
Sorry,
Do I have to speak louder?
Yes, please.
Okay. Bywater support, what do they do?
Bywater is our core. They support our Koha system, which is our entire integrated library system. That is the system that manages everything. Our book inventory, patrons, checkouts, route in, all of that system that controls everything. That's our core system.
So I was wondering though if it was like any of the staff was having technical issues and having to call, and what we could do to keep down on those calls to keep that number down. That's what I was inquiring
Just to put that
about.
number in perspective for you, we used to have a different integrated library system. A lot of times libraries use systems that are what we would call turnkey. Turnkey systems are the software is completely integrated and managed by the company that owns the software. Koha is actually an open source product. Prior to Koha integrating that open source product for our integrated library system, our integrated library system costs were approaching $70,000 a year. So you can see, and you just weren't on the board back then, you can see we went through a huge restructure. And now our costs are less than $18,000 a year.
Yeah, and I also was very impressed that you're able to run the 5 libraries with only 49 staff members. That's amazing.
Yes.
Really good job.
Yeah, we have. We had to make some of those changes over the past 10 years, obviously, because we had to reduce the budget. And the open source integrated library systems it's not perfect. It does require some additional staff expertise, which is not always easy to find, and it's hard to hold on to them in a year, when it's hard to compete with private sector for that talent. So that's one of the things that'll be that we have to address in the coming years is how we can attract and retain talent to run those types of systems, because you save money on the other end when you can run something like an open source Koha system.
Right.
But yeah, just type Koha into your search engine.
Yeah,
You'll see it come
I
up.
wrote it down.
Yeah.
I'm going to check it out. Thank you.
And Cybrarian PC management, that will actually go away when we move to that other print copy fax solution that I was talking about previously, because it will also have its own integrated public PC management software. So that would be one less. So when that goes into place, something else can go away. Because you have to have software that manages all those publicly accessible PCs, manages who logs in, it connects, in other words, they log in with their library card number, it authenticates against our other integrated library system, gives them a set amount of time, they can be on there for a certain amount of time for the day, all of that kind of good stuff. So that manages all of that, and of course manages their print costs. And a lot of these are all the products we run internally, or we use them to support internally. All of our IT across the board. So you see things like WatchGuard, Those are all firewalls, other types of switch and router technologies, all those sorts of things. And of course, WordPress there at the end, that is our website, our library website that was just rebuilt this past year. It's built on WordPress platform.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is Scale Care Renewal?
Scale is our internal servers. That is all of our servers that has all of our Outlook, all of our email, all of our internal documentation. We actually have a primary unit at our Central Ridge location, and then we have a backup unit that's in the IT closet in Floral City. So basically all of our documents every day are, at night, it actually duplicates across the system so that if we were ever to have a system failure
It's your
at one
backup.
location,
Yeah.
it's the backup.
Okay,
You got it.
thank you.
You're welcome. Printing and binding, that is somewhat promotional, but it's our marketing materials, our welcome guides, all of anything we have printed professionally, basically, comes out of this account. Library card sign-up month, things like that. Ted will talk about in a few minutes. And of course, promotional activities. That's all of the stuff that, like the library pins, other types of things that we have when we go to outreaches, all of those types of things. Some of the promotional stuff we do for the summer reading programs, and of course, our system-wide promotional items that we do. We keep that relatively low. For as much as we promote and do, I think that that's very, very reasonable. Everyone asks about what are these commissions, this property appraiser commission and the tax collector commissions. Because we're our own taxing district, those agencies are supported in the overall property tax, ad valorem taxes. So we have so much of a millage that's collected on behalf of the libraries, we have to give back a piece to that general support of those agencies. County's piece is much larger. That's how they're budgeted. So any individual taxing district has to give that back to the general fund to cover those. It's a percentage. Refunds is a small account. Refunds are just, we have to budget some money for when people say they've lost a book and paid for it, and then they go home and find it. This happens quite often. Then we have to give them a refund when they bring the book back. Basically, that's what that is. So we always encourage folks to, don't worry, don't write us a check just yet. Go home and look for that book, because when you find it, then we don't have to go through that refund process. It's okay if it's a little late. We won't hold it against you. Office supplies, that is your standard office supplies. That is for all 5 locations. That is exactly what you think it is. Staples, pens, paper, all of those sorts of things. And non-capital equipment, you'll see there's some things that were removed. We were going to, and that's what that, like you see the materials management desk replacements. We wanted to replace some older desks, and by older, you could come and visit us one day. I'll show you how we have some things put together. We were going to do some remodeling of our materials management area, but that didn't make the cut this year, so we had to trim a few things. So that's why you see the 11,500 in there, but then in parentheses, it's removed. So that will not be in there this year.
You
We'll try
still-
again next year.
Do you still have the old card catalog?
No. I wish we had those. Those were actually,
Did you sell them?
I don't even want to say what happened to them. They were,
Okay.
I don't know, because that happened before my time. The library automated in 93, 94. I started in 95. By the time I got here, they had already gotten rid of them all.
So sad.
And now I try to find one, and they're hugely expensive.
Yeah.
You can't hardly, find them.
Yeah.
Um,
On eBay.
But
or
yeah, I'm like, oh man, we should have kept at least a few of them. Yeah.
like a
I think everyone was excited about automating and getting rid of them at the time. They didn't know that 20 years later, people would be paying top dollar for that stuff.
Yeah.
Could have been a great fundraiser.
Okay.
Yes. And also, that is all the equipment for those print copy PC management. The kiosks I mentioned, that physical equipment itself, is a kiosk that people go to. That's the main cost of that public PC print management project going on. And as we get into that, I will bring some details to the board just to show you guys a lot of the features of how that's going to work.
Is that going to be a recurring cost, or is that the implementation?
That's
of it?
the one-time implementation. That's the hardware itself. And of course, our usual tables and chairs replacements as they break. And then operating supplies, that's your other types of supplies, which a lot of that is specified out. You have instructional program supplies, you have youth programming supplies, you have other types of things. General operations, these are things that are needed, but they don't fall under office supplies. For instance, I'll point to every other year, we have library cards in there. It's about a third of the way down. We have new library cards printed every other year to keep up with demand for library cards, which is a good thing. We also have things like volunteer appreciation, where we have things that we produce for that event. Our story walks are in there. How many of you have actually been to one of our story walk events? Yes, Phyllis. Yes.
Do you have any of
yes.
them on video? Do you have any of them on video?
The story walks? Not yet, but that's a thought. The story walks are usually in, I think the last one you did was at the event right across the street here at the, with, no? Laurel City?
Yeah, the Starbucks.
Well, they also did one over here.
The back to school event.
Back to school event, yes, yes.
Beginning of the month, they have story walk, but the previous big one would have been at Earth Day.
Yeah, the extension, we partnered with them in the Earth Day, and we put those outside. The whole point of a story walk is to get kids reading a story outside.
Yeah.
And they get to walk around to read the different panels. And by the time they work all the way around, they finish the story. We do have, if you go to our YouTube channel, we do have quite a bit of stories that are recorded on video for story times. Story time anytime is what we call it. There's the fuel you were asking about, Ken. Fuel and lubes. We're planning about $4,100 in fuel this year.
I would imagine this last 6 months you've really hurt.
It has, our fuel for our vehicles we follow the same route every week, every day, so it's pretty easy to estimate it. And we don't have a lot of extra, but yeah, I think we should be okay, but we keep an eye on it and we can make adjustments. For example, if we were to look and see that was going to run over, we could always transfer, and we have reserves that we could transfer from if needed. Hopefully not. Hopefully fuel stabilizes a little bit and those numbers hold. Janitorial supplies are all the things that go above and beyond that the staff have to keep things clean in the buildings. They also wipe down those books with the Mylar covers and all that sort of thing. We still do that just to keep things clean.
Good.
And we've added a lot of soap and additional restroom sanitation items to keep things smelling good and looking clean. Meals, which I don't know why they call it meals, but it's really just food, food and other things. We don't actually offer meals or anything like that. But Friends of the Library events, those are funded by, that's the reason that's in there, is it's that any food that we have at an event, like water, crackers, cookies, all of that, especially like kids events usually have those. In the summer, they'll have refreshments at different events. None of that can be provided with ad valorem taxes. That's all paid for through Friends donations. So that's why there's a line item, and that's why we call it Friends of the Library events. The only exception to that is volunteer appreciation. We can use the volunteer appreciation, and that's when we have our big volunteer appreciation event. Some of you were in attendance of that this past year over at the Central Ridge Community Center. So we like that venue. We hope to go back there again in April. And barcode scanners, if you've ever, when you're checking out books, you see we've got barcode scanners everywhere. Those are replacements as we phase out old versions and implement new ones. This is all just computer accessories, but interestingly enough, the cost of computers, now a computer itself is considered an accessory. In the old days, computers cost over $1,000 a piece. I mean, they were considered assets. Now you buy a computer for a few $100s, so it's not the same. Even laptops have gone down under 1,000, depending on what you're buying. Mostly for our use, it is. Even the things like a Microsoft Surface and things like that, they're under 1,000. Tablets are just a few $100s. So almost all of the computer equipment that we use on a day-to-day basis, none of it's considered an actual asset. Collectively, it's an asset, but the individual components are not. So we budget for all of our computer hardware and replacements out of the computer accessories account. And that's where you'll see computer replacements. We had put in for 15. That got adjusted down just slightly. So we'll have about 12,005. It's a lot lower than in the previous 4 or 5 years. If you guys recall, for those of you that have been on the board for a little while, we went through a period of time when we weren't able to do any computer replacements. We didn't do replacements of anything from 2011 through about 2015, 2016. It was very, very sparse on what we could replace. So we had to get on a plan. As things started to improve, we had to get on a replacement plan. We're about 4 or 5. We've completed that. It took about 4 years to get everything replaced. So now we're trying to get on a regular, recurring, rotational schedule. So this number shouldn't change too much from year to year unless we have a special need to replace some things. Because what had happened was we were operating in some cases with computers that were 8 to 10 years old that were just everything stopped. And the usual replacement schedule stopped. So we're back on a regular replacement schedule now. So hopefully we can continue that into the future. And of course printer replacements as well. The software piece of the public PC print workstations is a one-time. That's not a maintenance fee. That's the one-time cost of the software. And I also mentioned that it replaces the current computer management, public PC management software as well. It's all one product. And Windows licenses, we don't pay much for our licenses, but we put a few in there in case we add any additional stations. We get a very good library rate for those licenses. We don't pay what the consumers have to pay. Dues, books, and subscriptions. That is a lot of our subscription content. A lot of this is public-facing content. In fact, almost all of it, or technology that supports the public-facing content. Some of these are individual subscriptions, so they're listed individually. Like, for instance, the Ancestry subscription. That is Ancestry.com. It's the library edition, so people can come in and they can use their login while they're here at the library if they have one already. Even if their subscription at home is expired, they come in, they can use the library edition, log in as a library user. They cannot access the library edition from home. Ancestry's profit model will not let them do that. So, but you can come into the library and work on Ancestry. It's the same Ancestry you would get if you had an individual subscription. You just have to be at the library to do it. And every library has access to that. So it's pretty cool. And there is increased interest at times in genealogy. We also have a couple of others like American Ancestors. And I believe there's a Heritage one that's further below, Heritage Quest. That's also a large subscription dealing with genealogy. Very popular. I would like to see it more popular and more used. It's like you have to get the word out on all of those databases. But of all of the electronic stuff that you find, other than ebooks and things like that, it's more popular than most of the other digital subscriptions. Book page, that's those of you that come in the buildings, you see that every month. We have a new book page subscription now. People do like that. We have digital magazines.
That's $10,000. What kind of magazines are the most popular?
There's 3,400 magazines digitally in that collection. So it's broad.
What ones are the most popular?
I believe it was HGTV was the most popular magazine. Hold Home and garden stuff is extremely popular. Cooking magazines.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Great.
Yeah. It's through Libby, so if you go in there and go through Libby, you'll see all of those available. And a lot of that too is, while that's a lot of money, it's nothing compared to what the cost of print magazines are. We have been phasing out print magazines for quite some time. We're down to a pretty sparse collection of print magazines. I've gotten a few complaints about that, but not a lot. The only complaints that I've gotten directly were just folks that like to come in and pull a magazine off the shelf and sit. But I'm like, most of them aren't used that way, and the cost of them doesn't justify that. This broad access where you can get all of these magazines for everyone across the board that you can just get on your phone and any device is a much better use of those funds. And I'll just give an example. I had a flight recently, so I downloaded 4 or 5 different. You can just download them to your phone before you get on your flight. You have them available, and you've got magazines to look at while you're flying to wherever you're going, just like an ebook. So it's very cool. Newspapers, same thing. We're going to have to be moving in that direction simply because we can't get newspaper. We can't even get the Tampa Bay Times right now because we've lost our local delivery provider of that newspaper. So it's 2 to 3 days old now when we get it. Lots of complaints over that. So we have to find digital, and that's why that's in there this year. We have to find digital sources for those magazines. Newspapers. Because it's all going digital.
Are they going to be like just regular copies of the paper versus them having like a live feed to the public where they can perhaps see people data? Like, I don't want them to like have, how do I explain it? There was a technical guy that was at that New York Times meeting that explained the privacy issue and the market, the targeting and the marketing that could occur.
Yeah.
So if it's
No,
like a
that won't-
microfiche style picture, then
Correct.
that would be fine. But I wouldn't want any like live links where they're tracking people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that we would have to look at those individually, but a lot of that, one of the products we're looking at is an aggregator, which pulls that through. So we supply the content through the aggregator. So that's basically, and again, if you're using your library record to access that, library records are confidential. So we would have to take a look at that. But I know what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yep. And there would always have to be, even if they do, they have to have an opt-out option of that sort of thing. I think there are some libraries that I've seen in other cities, and I can't be specific because I haven't done any in-depth research on it, but that would require an opt-out feature. So, yeah. Let's see. All of those subscriptions, I was looking to see if anything else pops up. World Book, we're hoping to get World Book online this coming year. We budgeted for it this time, and basically that is World Book Encyclopedia, but digital version. So that will be geared mostly towards the grade level schools and things like that. But anyone could use it, of course. But that's all gone digital. Training, those are additional training events. These usually coordinate with the travel. You have travel costs, but you also have the cost of the training event itself. For example, your Florida Library Association conference, that $1,250 covers about 8 or 9 staff members to be able to, not actually 7, depending on the cost of the conference, to be able to attend that conference that year. Next year it's in Daytona, this coming year. Your conference committee chair is sitting over there in a green sweater. Debbie's a conference committee chair for Florida Library Association, and so she's also incorporated a few of the staff to be her conference committee helpers. So we will be in attendance, hopefully, if all goes well, at the Florida Library Association next year's conference. Sunshine State Library Leadership, I'll let Debbie talk about that in a few minutes. And of course, general TBLC workshops and meetings. Buildings, we had some stuff that got removed. One of the major building, and a lot of this is, it's maintenance, but because it's expensive, it gets moved to buildings, not just maintenance. VCT flooring replacements at Central Ridge. That's a large, VCT tiles are that common industrial flat-looking tile that you see a lot, those little squares. They come unglued. They literally do. That building is 26 years old, and it's starting to come unglued.
In the physical sense.
In the physical sense,
Bam,
yes.
bam.
So it's actually becoming a safety hazard in certain areas. So we're having to have that flooring redone in that building. We also have issues with carpeting, which we've tried to hold off at Lakes and Coastal Region, because that's another large expense that we're trying not to incorporate until we could get a renovation plan underway. We did get some repairs done on those that'll hold us off a little bit longer, but the VCT coming unglued can't really be. It's just not. It's got a lot of problems, so we're hoping to just get that replaced. Coastal Region Library, we're doing the portico gutters that run across the front of that building. Same thing happened at Lakes, where the water gets underneath and gets up into the building and causes problems. So we're looking to replace those gutters across the front of that building. Our wall addition got removed this year. That had to do with also the furniture that got removed. We're not going to do that plan this year, so that's why that you see the parentheses around that was removed. And there's our cost for our new van that we hope to get this year at some point, $35,000. I anticipate it's probably going to be more than $35,000, but we'll see where it comes in. It is a basic cargo van, so you wouldn't think it would be, but based on the cost of everything I've seen, it could be. So we may have to transfer some additional funding and cover that in the end. Library books and publications, that is the entire book budget. That is what we spend on books and publications, including DVDs and other types of things, but a lot of books for all genres across all 5 library locations. CRA payments, that's part of that. We're a library district, so we have to pay back into some of our ad valorem collected has to go back into the Community Redevelopment Act, I believe is what CRA stands for. They do get other county funds for that, so that's just our portion of it. And that goes to the cities, Crystal River and Inverness respectively. Transfers, that is obviously our auto premiums. We pay for deposit pickup is all of our what we collect, which is not a lot, but what we collect in copy fees and things like that get collected or booked. Every library has a cash register where people pay for books and materials and all that good stuff, and if they lose a book. All of that funding is collected, and then we have to have that picked up. The county manages that program in partnership with the, I believe, the Sheriff's Department. So. Indirect costs, that's our cost back to the county for all of those other services that they provide to us as a district, human resources, financials, and things like that. And that trust account is zeroed out. That's where you can plan for a vehicle each year. You put a little bit back each year into a trust account until you buy one. That's why that's zeroed out, because we actually have it in the budget up there to replace that vehicle. And then we won't need that trust account anymore. And then that's our reserve cash forward at about a little under $500,000. That is our reserve, so hopefully we don't need to use it for anything, for any maintenance issues anyway. Wrap it up quickly. Page 13, that is the law library. We are, based on a county ordinance, there is a law library created. That was transferred to us from the clerk of courts about 15, 17, maybe even 20 years ago. It's been a while. I lost track of all those dates and times, but we do, if you flip the page, you go over to page 14, you'll see what we purchased with that. That funding is not provided through ad valorem taxes. That's provided through court fees based on that ordinance. We have a Westlaw station at the Lakes Region Library that is considered that is considered the law library. Used to be physical books, not anymore. It's all digital. And we're adding some across the board resources. We have Law Depot that's available through Libby, and that has a great amount of legal forms that people can use. And we're going to be adding, and also has other law resources that people can use, and we'll be adding the Gale legal forms this coming year. So people will have access to those. Florida Arts and License Plate isn't what it used to be. It's because there are so many license plates that people can choose from. We get the money back from Florida Arts. We use them for different projects. We use some of that funding when we did the Winslow Homer Prince project at Homosassa. We've also paid for speakers to come and do programs at the library. It's a small amount. It's a couple thousand a year. And that runs us to state aid, which is page 17, and that's what we anticipate state aid to libraries to be, and that usually gets pretty much absorbed by collection, which is books and materials. And the last one on page 19, you'll see that's library impact fees. That are the impact fees that are collected for library development. We haven't used those yet. We're in process. The county doesn't, the person I was working with moved on. I'll be working with them on how we can utilize and what portion of those fees we can utilize for lakes and coastal renovation. Renovation doesn't typically fall under an acceptable use for impact fees because impact fees are used for growth. So like if we were building a new building, we could use them. That's what Homosassa and Floral City have used. Right now, current impact fees coming in are paying the debt service on Floral City, $70,000 a year. That gets paid for through those impact fees until that building is paid off in 2029, 2030. So in my recent conversations, there may be some ability to do certain things at the facilities with impact fees that provide an increase, and my wording, not theirs, is if we're increasing service capacity, isn't that similar to increasing footprint? Because we don't need to increase the footprint at those facilities, but we do need to increase service capacity. So we're working on that. And of course, you can see on that last page, expenditure detail for that. It's right now, it's paying Floral City's debt. That is all of that. And believe it or not, that was the short version.
And where are we in this process? Is it done? I mean, is it?
It has been preliminarily approved by the BOCC and the library. The library governing board actually does approve preliminarily the budget, and that happened last month. So everything is in motion. The next step will be the final budget hearing for approval. And I have not heard of any changes since then. And I'm going to talk a little bit in this presentation coming up about the millage and how that works and the history of that, because I think that's one of the most important things for you guys to understand and where we are with that. They set the millage at the last meeting in July, and for the whole county, but including the library district. And so that millage is what determines our budget number. And so from that, that'll determine our revenue. Last meeting in September, last BOCC meeting in September, all that's finalized. So while the library governing board does preliminarily approve the budget, the Board of County Commissioners for the county, the entire county, control millage rate, which controls how much funding we get for the budget. That make sense?
All right.
All right.
Any questions or
Any other
more
questions?
for the budget review?
One more question, the aid to libraries for 55,000.
Yes.
Can you go over that just one more time if you did it already?
Oh, what it was? That is the state aid to libraries. That is a grant program. So every year we apply for state aid to libraries from the Florida Department of State. And when we receive those funds, it is almost every year 100% absorbed by book budget. We buy books and materials with it.
Okay.
Okay. Do we want to move on to our orientation now, or is
We
it-
can if you want to.
That's where it's slated, so let's
Keep
do
it rolling.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see if I can still change the. How am I doing? I'll make this quicker. A few of you asked if we could do kind of like a brief orientation. what I'd like to do, and then for the sake of time, is I'll cover these slides, which is not going to go in depth. I don't know how many of you brought your books with you today, but we can certainly get into that more in depth. If you have questions along the way, I can make some notes, and we can bring back pieces of things that you want to go more in depth in just at one meeting, rather than trying to get in depth on everything in this meeting. All right. So in section 1 of your book, and this is just to kind of give you guys an overview and also get you thinking about what you might want to know more about. Obviously, the creation of the Special Library District. Some of these questions came up in the past year, especially as, well, what's the difference between the Library Advisory Board and the Library Governing Board, and where did these things come from, and why did they exist, and how did they exist? Well, the creation of the Special Library District happened back on March 13th, exactly, 1984, by voter referendum. The county had a wish to create its own library system. We were part of the Ocala-Marion County regional system. So there were libraries here, but the county just paid into a regional project to manage those libraries. So basically in 1984, a lot of community support. Some of you might remember Mr. Renfro. There were some others that were very instrumental. He had come to town to work at the nuclear plant at the time and saw how minuscule, I guess is the best word, the libraries were at that point, and said, if we're going to have a major nuclear plant running into this county, we need a better library system to support the educational needs and others of the people that were working there. So, and then that grew into creating a library system in a nutshell. I actually still have copies. We found them. This is a scanned version of the actual ballot that was in March of 1984. If you want a copy, I can email it to you. That was back in the day. Citrus County was different, and of course everything is different. You talk Democrat, Republican, things change over time. Citrus County used to be mostly Democrat. It's just flipped now. It's mostly Republican. It just flips around based on, in the 80s it was very different. But regardless of politics, that's why I put both the Republican and Democrat ballot up. And it was in a primary. So you see, that was 1984. That was Reagan's second term he was going for back then. But the piece on the far right of each one of those ballots is the actual wording that created, that everyone voted for. And I can't read it from here, but and it's hard to read, sorry. But again, I can email you that if you're really interested in that.
I am.
You got? You want one? I'll just email it to everybody because it isn't cool. You should see it. So, after that election, there was an ordinance created that provided for the establishment of the Citrus County Special Library District. It provided for the levy of the ad valorem tax. It cannot exceed 1/3 of a mill. That's the maximum approved by that ballot measure. So our maximum millage that can be put on property is 0.3333. After that ordinance was passed, an addendum was added. That addendum is what created the addition of the two cities. That addendum, which is 84-W1, Section D, it says the governing body of the Citrus County Special Library District includes the Board of County Commissioners plus one member of the City Council of Inverness and one member of the City Council of Crystal River, each appointed by their respective councils. That was established by ordinance in 1984. I put them in your book, so you do have it. Awesome.
Yeah.
I thought I might.
In section 1 of the,
Just because I'm a history nerd, so I had to put that in there.
that was the new book you gave us last.
Awesome. Great. Good deal. after the ordinance created the library governing board, the library governing board established the library advisory board, and that was in 1986. So that was a resolution, not an ordinance. It was a resolution 86-54 that created the duty to advise the board of county commissioners on the library's budget and other pertinent matters.
Are the appointments to the library governing board annual?
The library governing board is elected officials. The
Okay.
library advisory board.
But is that, do they assign?
Oh, you mean the cities?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe the city councils, when they, like, and the county commission does this as well, they have different councils or boards that they're members of. So each year, when the chair changes, they reassign
So it's
duties.
annual, okay.
And I imagine the cities work in a very similar fashion. Each year as their board assignments for their councilships come up, they reassign. And a lot of times it might be the same people each time, but that is up to their elected boards.
It says each appointed by their respective councils.
Yes. And they usually do that annually. Right. So that resolution, 8654, resolution of the governing body. Now, that brings us to current. That was a very old resolution. It had, and what Taylor is handing out is the new resolution. The resolution that was recently updated to clarify some language on a few things with regard to the Library Advisory Board. So that's why you see resolution number 2022-029. This is the new resolution that was approved for the Library Advisory Board. Now, I'm not going to read this word for word. That would be painful for you and me. I'm just kidding. But I will point out a few things. I do recommend that you read it entirely. Come up with any questions that you might have for me. Just shoot me an email on your questions, and that way I can answer them collectively when we have our next meeting and can clarify some things. But basically, this is what sets up your board, this advisory board, and what you are to do, and how those board members are selected. There's a lot of whereases there, so I'll just skim through most of those. It talks about things like 5 of you constitute a quorum. It is a 9-member board. That you do have your meetings and things like that. It clarified meetings because the old one did have you meeting every month, a minimum of 12. No, and that has changed over time through votes by their own board and things like that. So it was due for an update. But at the section underneath, "Thou there be it resolved," by the governing board sets this ordinance, resolution, that everything above was true and correct, but also it reinforced that the term of appointment for any library district advisory board member will be for a term of 2 years. That's number 2. That had actually always been in the case, but because that old ordinance also because it was the founding resolution, it had some foggy language in there, I would guess, because they had to establish a board and then they had to have additional members on there for extended periods of time because of certain reasons that they needed at the time, which I have no idea what those were. This cleans it up. Moving forward, you have 2-year terms. Those terms begin on the first day of February and end on the 30th of January 2 years later.
2-year terms for the
2-year
district
terms
advisory board, right?
for this advisory board.
Okay.
Yes.
It was probably to set up a board.
It was to
9
set it up
members,
back then.
And so you wouldn't have everybody turning over at the same time.
Correct.
So when you initially set up any committee or something like that, you stagger them in the
Yes.
first series of years.
It was.
Then you go to your normal
Mhm.
replacement.
Exactly. And I remember talking to the attorney at the time, and she said, like, yeah, this should have been cleaned up years ago, and it should have. It's just that it didn't get done. So that cleans this up, and it's just easier to understand. There wasn't anything wrong with it. It was just old language from a different time. And so this cleans that up. So all of you are on 2-year terms, and right now 5 of you get reappointed 1 year, 4 of you can get reappointed the next, or if you leave, someone else would take that seat. And if you leave in the middle of your term for any reason, someone would be appointed to fill an unexpired term. So they would just fill out, that way you always stay on a staggered 4 1 year, 5 the next, and then that's the way it works moving forward. The other thing that's important is number 4 that I have up on the screen, which is all appointments to the library district will be made by the special library district. That's the governing board, upon the creation of a vacancy, either by the natural expiration of terms or upon the, that sort of thing. Removal, death, et cetera, et cetera. Exactly what I was just referring to. So, they put a point of clarification that there will be no lifetime appointments. There was only one ever lifetime appointment, and that was for a gentleman. He seemed like a very nice gentleman from back in the founding days. His name was Joseph Bowler. He was one of the, I don't know him personally. He's since passed years ago. He was very instrumental in getting the library. He was one of those founding members getting the library district created, and getting the library system established. So I think that was a ceremonial point to him, but there was a lot misunderstood about that wording, so this has been removed so that there can be no misunderstandings.
Was Bauer the admiral that was involved?
No, that was Mr. Renfro.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Renfro. He was on the board for many years, and then he left for a little while, and then he came back. Yeah, he was also very instrumental. And we changed on number 6, you'll see we changed the meeting, so we only meet every other month. We can always have an additional meeting if needed, but at least we meet every other month. That gives us, the board, a little more flexibility. I mean, unless you guys just want to meet every month, I mean, we can make it happen, but no, I'm just kidding. That's why these meetings are sometimes a little longer, because we're only meeting every other month rather than every month. And then, of course, to keep it simple, the authority to announce vacancies, that's where some folks get confused. That just happens at a regular Board of County Commission meeting. While the appointees themselves happen by the Library Governing Board, that's all 7 members, the announcements and process can still be initiated at the Board of County Commission level. And you'll see that all provisions included in the resolution 8654, inconsistent with any provisions here, are now superseded by this resolution. So that's why we've hole punched that for you, and you can stick it in your book. And that was signed on March 22nd, 2022. That was the big thing we needed to definitely cover today. Any questions on the resolution? Wonderful. Mission statement. You guys as a board have the authority to kind of modify your mission statement if you want. This is an older one. It was created, I don't know, some 10 or 12 years ago by the members of the board. It's pretty basic. The mission is to be the liaison between the citizens of the county, library administration, advocate for the library system to elected officials at all levels, and ensure quality library services to the community. Very broad, very basic. Most mission statements are. The bylaws and sunshine law, a couple of things. What we will need to do, what I will assist this board in doing, is we need to now take the changes that were in this new resolution and update your bylaws. You have a copy of your bylaws in your book, but if you read through them now, there will be a couple of small contradictions in the bylaws and what's on this. So over the period of the next meeting or two, we'll go ahead and make some draft changes to the bylaws for you, distribute them to you so that you can review, make sure everything is appropriate to your liking, but then they'll be approved by you, but then they will have to go and be approved by the governing board. So what we do is get it ready to go so that when there's another meeting of the governing board, in case we needed to, which right now there's not one scheduled until January when they do the replacements for the next, but that'll probably be about right. And we would just include those bylaws updates in that January meeting. Believe it or not, that's only 4 months away, so we're right upon that. But in the meantime, if you run across something in the bylaws, the resolution would supersede that if there's a contradiction. Resolution is above the bylaws. Then that'll get done. And sunshine law. Several of you asked for, and we didn't want to put it in this meeting because we'd be here a while, just covering an update in sunshine law. So we'll create either in one of our next couple of meetings. I want to get with the county attorney too to see if she has any specific resources on sunshine. She wants to make sure, probably that are shared with all advisory board groups. But the basics of sunshine law is you can't talk about any business that would reasonably come before this board for a decision. You can't talk among each other about that business, or
What-
email about that business. That's
that-
in a nutshell. Yes,
Look-
ma'am.
What about after the meeting?
You can talk, but you can't. That's when you can't. In a meeting, you can talk about anything
Yeah.
you want. You shouldn't talk about business that this board would be making decisions on outside of the duly noted meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but what about, like, I missed last month's
Mm-hmm.
meeting.
Correct.
Is it legal to call Nell and ask her
Correct,
what
no.
happened at that meeting?
It isn't.
Okay,
You have to call me,
I have to call you.
and I can just
Alright.
forward you the minutes, and we can discuss, and you can ask questions,
Okay.
and I can bring you up to speed. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, if you're not used to working in sunshine law and things like that, typically, it's pretty simple. It's just, and a lot of times some things can get considered violations. I know that there's been others in the past where someone would say it was, and if you refer to the attorneys, they'll say, no, that was not an intentional, it was an information share. Where the sunshine law, what it's intended to prevent is collusion, where multiple people or multiple board members would be talking about an issue outside and then coming in and voting on that issue. That's what it's intended to prevent. But we'll get into much more of that, and possibly at the October meeting if I can get some resources together for you guys. And I think even Ken brought one resource, I think I wrote it down at the time, of another board you were on that had a nice resource for sunshine law.
So Eric, I think what I'm kind of hearing, and I don't know whether we need to
Sure.
solidify it, but this is really good, and we've been needing like an orientation, but rather than just an orientation, if just a segment for like
Different
training.
segments at each
And that way,
meeting.
it doesn't have to be a long thing, it can be a
Correct.
continuous thing, like this, da, da,
Yep.
da, 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 and we can request it ahead if.
Yep.
Okay, so that's kind of like what we're seeing,
Yeah, that's what we want to do, and that's why I did today. It's just kind of an overview.
Okay.
But what we'll come back with these segments. Sunshine law was right at the top.
okay.
There's another one that comes up in a second that one of you have requested. Oh, it's right there on the screen.
The
Robert's
Robert
Rules of
Rules.
Order.
Okay,
And bring these back in segments rather than doing a full orientation.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
With all of those, because we'd be here for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So I think we'll do sunshine law, we'll do Robert's Rules of Order, and the bylaws is business, so that'll just be part of the business. But I think Robert Rules of Order is important for a lot of different groups because you get lax in what's the flow, and that's just to keep meetings orderly. And according to the bylaws, this meeting should be run by Robert's Rules of Order. So I have to update myself on. I don't have a copy of Robert's Rules of Order.
That'd be great.
I'll have to check one out from the library. But for the basics of the meeting, and that's making sure we don't miss any steps, since there are official approval processes in some of those. Make sure no steps are missed.
Okay, so are we oriented for today?
Almost.
Okay,
Last thing, real quick, strategic plans. We will be going over this with you guys. We renew the strategic plan every 3 to 5 years. Next year, we need a new one, so we'll be bringing that to you guys, and you'll probably be asked for input on a strategic plan and things like that. You will be asked for input, not probably, on what elements would go into that. So we'll get started on that in the next few meetings too, just to kind of get you oriented around the strategic planning process and how we go through it and what we do and what we put in there. And then the annual plan of service, that's something we do update each year. So we'll be reviewing that with you at the October meeting. That'll be coming up next meeting. And we talked about the budget. I already talked about the revenue sources. Those are the main ones. And direct donations is also something I didn't mention, but yes, we do get those. Gifts in kind, that's where someone buys us something direct. But here's what I wanted to cover really quickly. The history of the library millage rate. This is our tax rate. This is how we get our 99% of our funding. An original in 1986-87, all the way through 2007, the libraries collected the maximum millage, full third, 0.333. I believe that was set that way on purpose, and it was. I know Mr. Renfro was a big advocate for always ensuring libraries receive the full millage because it allowed the libraries to build. We've built multiple locations. We built the two at the time in '86 and '87. It was the Lakes and Lakes and Coastal Region libraries were brand new buildings that paid that service and debt on those buildings. Homosassa, Floral City, all of that. During the recession, there was a legislative rollback. That was the first time in the library's history that we did not receive a full millage. And it drops us back to .3102. But in 2012, it was increased, and then in 2013, it was put back to a full third to pay, and that's when we were able to start doing some planning again because we needed a lot of maintenance. But then in 2017, rollback started. The rollback is that you collect. Now we were permitted to hold at the .3217 for a couple of years, but rollback basically the entire county was rolling back. That means you collect the same amount of taxes. If property values go up, you roll back the millage rate so that you collect the same amount you did the previous year. And that happened in 2017, again in 2021, and again this just past July when they set the millage, they rolled us back again. So we'll be at .3147, which will be our lowest millage rate since 2008. So it's our second lowest millage setting since then. Now, we have enough revenue with that millage to do what we need to do, but there is not a lot in there to grow facilities. We do have some renovation projects. There's going to be a lot of discussion about how we fund those renovation projects for Lakes Region Library and Coastal Region Library. Those buildings are 35 years old, 36 years old, so they need renovation. We do have private funding and things like that through supplemental funding, which I've talked about the Library Foundation Fund before. That is the foundation fund. It's ran by the U.S. Family Foundation. That's another one of our special meetings. We want to have Paul Cash come in from the U.S. Family Foundation, Johnny Cash, and talk about how that fund is. Love Your Library event, that private event, that contributed tremendously to the growth of that fund. You have we usually hand out the statements from that fund, so you have the most recent statements. You know that fund is pretty substantial, but not when you go doing renovations, especially not right now when the cost of everything is sky high. So even if we had the funding for renovations tomorrow, we don't know if we would want to even move forward with that until things cool off a bit, because we would not get the value that we really would desire from that funding. And this board is the Library Advisory Board. This was also set up by Mr. Renfro back then, and that's why we need to have Johnny Cash come in and talk to you guys about it. It was set up where this board is the advisor to that fund. It's a donor-advised fund.
What was the rationale for the rollback this year when they increased the millage in some of the other divisions?
That would be guessing if I answer that question.
It doesn't make sense because they increased it in other things.
Yeah.
And then they go
They only increased it where they had to.
I understand that.
That was the way it was explained to me.
They didn't have to decrease this. They could have left it alone.
It is a rollback plus 5%, so we do have a 5% increase, but that doesn't. In looking at the numbers, that doesn't cover the inflationary increases that we're experiencing. So, but yeah, budget discussion is good, and I think there's going to be a lot of changes over the coming months. So we'll see if we can get some further clarification on that. I think that there is, and I know back when Mr. Renfro was here, he did advocate very heavy for the millage for the libraries. To do that, because that is an option, that's a tool that we would have, but there would have to be support for that when we're searching for funding sources, revenue sources to do those renovations. Because we're our own taxing district, and we do keep about $500,000 in reserve. That's not a lot in reserve. That covers things, if we have a roof fall in or some other type of catastrophe, we cover that. But we could work on a case for utilizing that fund, additional millage very specifically for construction and renovation and things like that. That's a thought. But I haven't been able to get that formulated in a presentation yet to move forward as we seek.
We'll have to consider that
Mm-hmm.
after the election.
Correct. I think in the coming year, that's going to be talked about a lot more because we're at a point where we can't really put off the renovations much longer. The buildings really need some work on the inside, and we have to make the case for that. I don't think it's hard to make the case for the need of the renovations. Walk through and you'll see that we can make that relatively easy. The discussion will be how it's funded. And that is one tool that we can use to fund that. But there has to be support for that. And just to clarify again, the Board of County Commissioners alone, those 5, determine those millage rates.
Yeah, I understand.
Yep.
I understand that.
So that's where our efforts would need to be.
I just don't understand why they lowered it this year when they increased it in other categories and when 2 of them are not running for reelection.
Yeah.
If they're running for a reelection, you can see why they might do things.
Absolutely. Good question. Thank you, Ken. Any other questions about things? I think we have a few things now that we'll separate out individually for explanation. And as always, if you have something you want us to focus on in a meeting, just let me know or bring it up here at the meeting, and we will focus solely on that in a future meeting. So that's just it in a nutshell. If you don't have any questions, we could move on. With your permission, Chair, I'd like to just rearrange things a little bit, and
Certainly.
I would do the region manager updates first, and then do the public relations at the end. So with that, either Adam or Debbie, either one, could come up and give you guys some updates on what they've been working on.
What we've been working on.
All right.
First thing I would like to talk about is the C4 Con coming up. C4 Con, that's our version of a Comic-Con festival, and it'll be at Homosassa Library on October 15th from 10 to 3. It's really going to be fun. We have a whole bunch of things planned. We got some Annie the Face Painter coming. We have a panel set up where people are going to come and talk about all stuff Star Wars or Comic-Con. There will be costume contests. And we have a special guest, I guess he is, Timothy Gilbert's coming in, and he's got this, like you can be, it's not Star Wars, it's Star Trek.
Star Trek.
And you sort of drive the ship, and you bomb places and bomb things. So it's pretty neat. We tested it out the other
It's a simulator.
Yeah,
it's a bridge simulator.
Oh,
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, for Star Trek.
Yes, for Star Trek. I'm not Comic-Con
Yeah.
savvy.
Savvy.
But it's really going to be a great day. So if you want to come out and see a lot, I mean, the first time we did it was pre-COVID, and we had over 700 people show up to it. So
Yeah.
this year we've learned that we needed a food truck and things like that. So it's going to be an absolutely fun day. Then I would also like to recognize 2 of our staff members who got into the Sunshine State Library Leadership Institute, otherwise called SILLY. It is a great leadership program run by the state, and it's very competitive, and they had to put in this long application, and they're going to have projects to do and learn about leadership. It's about 10 months long that they go, and they're going to Alachua County for it. They pick usually 2 spots in the state every year to do it. So that is Amy Marshall, our youth librarian at Lakes Region Library, got accepted into the program, and Maria Ruchinsky from Central Ridge Library. She's our volunteer coordinator there. I know Edith, you've gone through it, Eric's gone through it, Adam's gone through it, I've gone through it. So it is a great program, and they teach about communication skills, leadership, managing people. So we're really excited for them. It's a great opportunity.
Awesome.
And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions on those 2 things? Nope. Okay.
Thanks, Debbie.
to wrap up summer. With our summer youth program, we had an excellent summer, seeing a lot of kids in the libraries. We brought back pretty much everything we had pre-COVID, and well-attended programs, well received again by the public. Everyone really was happy to be out and attending our programs. A couple things that really were important to me, which was some statistics, and we had 187,000 minutes read by kids this summer, which totals over 3,100 hours. Wow. So we definitely accomplished a lot getting kids reading this summer. And we checked out 14,000 books in 6 weeks for kids. So 14,000 of our youth material circulated just over summer. So we really did get kids reading, which is very important to me. And we're about to start weekly programs for kids. So we'll have programs for elementary age as well as middle and high school age kids. They're going to start phasing in September, but fully every week in October. And then, sorry. For adult literacy, we also have a lot of things going on. We've been rebuilding that for the last couple months because we noticed a big drop off once COVID started. We had a lot of people that were a little bit shy about coming out, doing one-on-one tutoring, and we had some position changes as well. So we've really started rebuilding that, and we're focusing on one-on-one tutoring. We've also brought back English as second language classes at Homosassa every week. That's been steadily growing. But the other thing that we're very excited about is we're starting to work with the Sanctuary, which is the homeless shelter in Homosassa, and we're going to be offering weekly classes with them. They're going to be bringing about 12 to 15 people over to Homosassa Library every week to go over some different life skills classes with us. So we're going to start them with computer basics, creating an email, how to do job searches, how to dress and prepare for a job interview, and then that's going to lead into mock interviews as well to kind of help those people in the shelters to kind of get back on their feet and
That's
support them.
Good
So
job.
we're excited about those. And then the plan is once we get kind of a model for that to try to take it to some other areas in our community as well. So that's what we're working on.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah.
Just thank you, the summer program, and once again, just good job, everybody
How
that
did
was
you
involved
come
in
up with
that.
the idea
For
for the helping the homeless with the job
Sure.
skills?
Our new literacy service librarian, Amber, she's worked quite a lot with the Sanctuary. Some of them had been coming over, and she's reached out to them, getting them involved in some of the GED classes that we have, Career Online High School, some of those different programs. And we reached out to them to see if there's any other services that we could offer because we figured, they're the closest one to where kind of our literacy service office is based. So we wanted to start with them and see what we could offer, and then we sort of brainstormed with them what kind of services that that group might need.
That
And we
really
started
is
with life
so
skills.
Beautiful. Thank
So-
you
Yep.
for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
And I think Adam and Amber should be commended on doing just that, is reaching out into the community and asking them what they need. Because that's sometimes the hardest thing, and all you have to really do is ask. And I think the life skills is going to be hopefully helpful for all of them. And now it's time for Taylor.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so here, so she doesn't have to come in and adjust. I'll fix the microphone before I start. Just a quick couple of things that are upcoming for us. Library Card Sign-Up Month is this September. We are continuing on with one of our yearly campaigns, which is partnering with the schools. We get library card applications into the hands of all of our kindergarten students, both in the public schools and the private schools throughout our county. So there are 11 public schools, and then there are 6 private schools that I believe we work with. And so our youth librarians kind of keep tabs on the county and just make sure that we're not missing anyone that would be in that kindergarten, 5-year, 6-year-old range. And so with those applications that go out, we are switching up how we are doing our offerings a little bit this year. We typically go make a couple of trips to the schools, we deliver applications, we pick them back up, we process a few hundred new library cards in the span of about 1 to 2 weeks. Our circulation staff at the desk curse my name a little bit and curse the names of our youth librarians and are just busy typing their little fingers off, getting all of those cards through and into our system. But this year we're doing it a little bit differently. Instead of returning the cards back to the teachers, we are actually going to be mailing the new library cards out to each of the kindergarten kids. So what 5-year-old doesn't love getting mail for themselves. So they will be getting their new library card in the mail. And then, as Eric had mentioned, we have been doing a lot of mailing of library cards. We have a self-registration feature on our website that allows anyone in the county to be able to apply online for a library card, and we mail that out. And so we will do a specially curated list of contents that will go in their envelope with the mail. And then at the suggestion of one of our supervisors, we have found a way to add in an option for mom or dad to also get a library card that we will mail in that same envelope. So we are hoping that we are going to reach a larger number of our new families that are coming into the schools this year, and hopefully get cards into some of those happy little hands. The second thing that we are trying this year is called Refer a Friend. And this is a campaign that we have seen other libraries across the country start successfully at their libraries, and they do this during Library Card Sign-Up Month. Typically in September, we celebrate new library card holders. With that, we don't always get to celebrate our current library card holders. So in an effort to celebrate both our current card holders and bring in new card holders, we are instituting this Refer a Friend program. And so starting hopefully towards the end of August, we will be handing out slips to our current card holders when they come in to check out their materials. That slip will have that card holder's name and contact information, and you'll give it to your friends, your neighbors, family members who you don't think have a library card. If they bring that slip in and get a new library card, you, as the referee and the referrer, I still get those confused. Both of you, the current card holder and the new card holder, will be entered into a drawing. And so the Friends of the Library have graciously sponsored the drawing items that will be available at each location. And so those are actually going to be $50 gift cards, and it'll be a $50 gift card for the current card holder and the new card holder. So we were like, what better way to reach the people who don't have library cards than to use our people who already have cards. So you can invite as many of your friends and neighbors and family members as you would like to come in and get a new card, but we are hoping that this will drum up some new card holders in the month of September. And then at the suggestion of our friends, we will actually be extending that application time. That campaign will run through about mid-October. They are very excited to hand out the Refer a Friend slips at the Friends book sale, which leads me into our next option of things to talk about. So the mega book sale for the Friends on the Citrus County Library System is going to be starting on September 30th, and it will run through October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So that's Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. As they did a couple of sales back, they are actually opening the doors at 3 o'clock on Friday instead of 5 o'clock. Gives you a little bit more time to shop that Friday night. So we are very excited to have the mega sale return once again at the auditorium in Inverness. And then, not to leave our Homosassa friends out, their book sale is going to, well, normally it's in October as well. However, with elections, their book sale has been pushed all the way into November because Homosassa is one of our early voting sites for the supervisor of elections. And so their sale is going to be that weekend leading up into the week of Thanksgiving. So I believe, Ken, it is the
You look it up.
15th, 16th, and 17th.
That sounds right.
I feel like that's right.
That sounds
And if it's not the 15th, 16th, and 17th, it's the 16th, 17th, and 18th. It's a Thursday, Friday, and a Saturday right before what would be the week of Thanksgiving. So, and that is held at the Homosassa Library. And Ken's going to double check my dates there.
Yes, 17, 18, 19.
Okay. Ooh, we were close. We were close. It was the teens. All right.
It's always, well, you have the dates when we start our setup.
Ah,
But the actual
see?
sale is 17, 18, 19.
So it will be a 3-day sale held at the Homosassa Library. And then, as I mentioned, the Homosassa branch is one of 2 locations that is used as an early voting site by the Supervisor of Elections office. And so that's our main branch at Central Ridge is the busiest polling location. Last I checked this morning, we were at just shy of 700 votes that have been cast since early voting opened up. What was it, Friday? Early voting started Friday. Yep, so 700 votes have probably already been cast by now. Nope, not yet. We'll get to 700 by lunchtime probably. They open in a few minutes. And then our Homosassa branch is also utilized. So they are in right now with elections, and they will be back again in November. And then we will see them again in 2023 if there's a special election. And then, I don't know, Eric, if you wanted to cover Professional Development Day?
Go ahead.
Okay, so, and then on October the 10th, which is a Monday, all of our libraries will be closed. It is a day that most people think we are closed anyways. It is Columbus Day. And on that day, we will be gathering all 49 of our staff members into one location to do staff training. And so we will be focusing on customer service and all sorts of great fun things this year, including some different team building activities. So we greatly look forward to that day, being able to get all of the staff into one location for more than a quick hour and 15-minute all-staff meeting that we have about once a quarter. So it's a great day to just kind of see everyone. We all come to work every day, but being at 5 different locations, plus our administrative offices is 6, we don't see everyone. I think Janice is the only person who gets to see everybody on a pretty regular basis, as she's driving around the county delivering
Yes.
books. So we are very excited for that day to come back around once again. And then we do have 2 additional upcoming events where we will be out in the public and in the community. The Saturday, September the 24th, we will be attending the Chamber of Commerce's Business Expo. And typically that is held at the auditorium. This year they're switching up the venue, and they will be at the Depot in Inverness. And so Eric and Debbie will be there handing out library card applications, information about Libby, and hanging out with all of our good local businesses. And
The friends will
then-
be joining us as
Oh,
well.
yes, the friends will be joining us as well. So you can see them and their bright yellow shirts talking about the book sale. And then I just got our confirmation that we are good to go for the October 8th Scarecrow Festival at the City of Crystal River. And so that is a great local family event. The City of Crystal River holds a lot of great events. A lot of those happen to be big pulls for tourists. Scarecrow Festival, however, is a lot more of our local families. And so we go out to that event. Last year we made just over 40 library cards in the span of about 6 hours, which is a crazy large number for us. And then we have a story walk that is out there as well. So if you haven't seen a story walk yet, you are welcome to join us at Scarecrow Festival, and you'll get your library crown and a lollipop once you're done. It's
And what's the date of the Scarecrow?
Saturday, October 8th, and that is it is downtown in the City of Crystal River. And so they have Citrus Avenue, and there's booths and face painting and food. Last year was the debut of the Chick-fil-A food truck that they had brought in, and that area was packed. I swiftly avoided that line and went somewhere else for my food for the day. But it was quite busy at that festival last year, so we're excited to go back once again this year. And then everyone's favorite. That's all of my fun, happy, upcoming events. You all have a copy of our upcoming book displays for September, October, and November, and December. So, we recently had our quarterly activity planning meeting where the books display topics were discussed by all of our managers and supervisors. I will say it is a long 4-page document. This listing alone covers 108 book displays or branch displays. That is not everything that could pop up. As we have said in the past, some displays depending on current events, if an author passes, if there's a special birthday or event that is occurring that we could have missed, those may be added. So that could make its way up to probably 120, 125 by the time we are done with December. Just some things to make note of. I will start backwards. I'm sorry. It's an upside down list. It's December printed first, so we'll start in September. The last full week of September, which is September the 18th through the 24th, is nationally recognized as Banned and Challenged Books Week. And so all 5 of our library locations will have coordinated displays that talk about the history of Banned and Challenged Books Weeks. Banned and Challenged Books Week.
Say that 3 times real fast.
Please don't make me. I have said it enough already. And so that display will be heavily focused on some of our classic books that have been challenged. And I believe in researching just some of the information that we'll be putting on that display, this year is the 40th anniversary of the nationally recognized section of Banned and Challenged Books Week. And so there has been a lot of books that have been under review in the past, and so we are constantly ordering and having to add some of those back into our collection. They, as with any other books, sometimes they grow legs and wander off and don't come back to us. And so we are working constantly to just make sure those books are there to have a nicely filled out display for anyone who comes in to grab information. And then,
So, wait, hold on.
yes ma'am.
So the September 22 just mean
22 is in 22. Yes,
And it's the
2022.
whole month for each of these at these locations.
Yes, so
Okay.
typically a book display is up for the entire month. Our staff put in a lot of effort into creating the pieces and curating the lists for each of those displays, and so we put those up for the month. There are certain displays that could be up only for a small period of time. Sometimes we'll put up like a Shark Week display the week of the nationally recognized Shark Week in July, which is why Banned and Challenged Books Week has its special week. Sometimes it's a full month of celebration or in remembrance or honoring of a certain event, and so we work through the calendar on a pretty regular basis there. Other displays that you could see in the month of September include National Honey Month. National Talk Like a Pirate Day is Eric's favorite day.
Exactly.
It's his favorite day every year. Every year he tells me about his excitement for that one. And Hispanic Heritage Month is also in September. It runs from about September to October. Starting in October, we have a variety of spooky displays that will be out. So you'll find your ghost stories, murder mysteries, anything that could be Halloween related. We do have those. And then there's also some other ones that would include National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, Space Week. A big one that will be on display will be for C4Con, so there will be lots of comics, graphic novels, that type of thing. We do try to sometimes create book displays that will help promote upcoming events as well. There will also be a variety of Alzheimer's and dementia book displays out in October. We work closely with Debbie Savage and Ed Youngblood at Coping with Dementia and Dementia Education, and they have their annual Alzheimer's Walk in October, and it's actually hosted at Floral City, ironically on the same day as C4Con. So we will have our Floral City branch open that morning as part of the community who is there in support and honor and remembrance of those with Alzheimer's and dementia. Moving back a page into November, all of our branches will have a salute to service display in honor of Veterans Day. Those will actually be going up that last week of October and will be up through at least the first week of December. And so that will be an interactive display for people to add names of veterans in your family, neighbors, loved ones, etc. And then there will be books on the history of Veterans Day and different wars as well.
There's a couple typos.
Yes, that does happen. All of our staff members, our supervisors help kind of input into this list.
It's a draft
And
list.
I try to catch as many of them as I can, but 108 of it's a lot of reading. And then in December, our last page, our front page, there are a number of displays that welcome the holidays into our libraries. And so in addition to Christmas, there are book displays for Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, our holidays around the world celebrations. And so our staff do a great job recognizing and supporting a variety of people and groups in our community. Okay, that was a lot of information, and I think that covers everything, unless anyone has any questions about our displays. Anything? I know I just hit the highlights of some of them. There's lots of options there.
I
for
do
you
have a
guys.
question on the banned books display. Is it gonna like show the banned books or just talk about them? I mean,
So there will be books that have been banned in the past that are on that display. Again, there's 50 plus years of book banning that has been going on, and so we have a lot of those titles in our library, and those books will be pulled from their regular locations on the shelves and be added to that display for the week.
so they're banned or they're not banned?
No, they're not banned now.
They're not banned now. They were challenged.
So they
in
call
the
ban and
past.
challenged.
Oh, okay, so they're
Yep, they were
challenged.
banned
Ban and
in the
challenged,
Banned books.
just to
They're-
expand on that,
Didn't it say banned?
sorry.
is a national,
Okay.
Yep, the
Thing that's
National Week is
recognized.
banned and Challenged Books Week.
Yes.
So a banned book could have been banned in the past, and it could have been banned at another location,
Another
or
location.
another library or school in the past.
Oh,
For
okay,
example,
gotcha.
my favorite banned book is Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck.
Yeah.
It was banned in California, I believe, of all places.
And To Kill a Mockingbird.
Kill a Mockingbird.
To Kill a
That's why we
Mockingbird
wanted
is
to
my
focus
favorite
on the
pen.
classics
What's
this
the one we
year
all read in
because
high
people kind of forget in all the
1984,
all of the
Brave New World.
current excitement about some of this that this is nothing new. People have been banning books for decades. That's why I think a lot of the publishers, media organizations, libraries, they all got together. I think it was 50 years ago, and they started doing just a regular week where they recognized that libraries, obviously public libraries, are the First Amendment, cathedrals, so to speak. So that's the good place to do them. I think I can remember. I've been here, it'll be 27 years in September. We've had those displays up every year for the past 27 years, probably before that too, before I got here. I'm sure they did it too. So so at least for 30 years they've been displaying, well, we've been a library system for 35. We're coming up on our 35th anniversary as a library system.
That's our next
So-
meeting. Don't take away my talking points for
Yeah,
our
I
next
won't do
meeting,
that.
okay?
That'll be our next meeting.
You're
but-
stealing the limelight
Yeah,
now.
if you have a favorite book that was banned or challenged, let us know. If we don't already have it, we'll make sure we put it on the display.
A handful of Dr. Seuss books have been
Yeah,
challenged
some
in the
Dr.
past.
Seuss, yep, things like that.
Yes, ma'am.
This is just an aside.
Mhm.
On my iPad,
Yes.
I have
Yes, what's the name?
my
Come on.
read banned books.
By, Kenny
Yes.
On
Murray
it.
offered that.
And I went up to see my great granddaughter and she was using my iPad and she said, Gigi, why do you read banned books? I said, that's because that's where all the good stuff is.
Now,
Very good.
just on, with regard to going back to the library card registrations, with the, when you go into the schools, they'll fill out a form.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
And on that form, it'll give the option for the parents to also sign up.
So we do a special library card application for our kindergartners. It's a slightly scaled down version of it to make it a little bit easier for the parents to fill out. It's not as wordy. Librarians like to make things a little wordy. I don't know if you've noticed that recently, but we try to just strip it down a little bit for them. This year, yes, simplify. That's the word I was looking for. This year, we are also adding an option for them to fill the application out digitally. And so that is in direct response to survey feedback that the schools have received in the last year from parents and families. As much as we all love our little 5 and 6-year-olds, they're not always the most trusted sources of getting information back and forth from teachers to parents. And so on that front, we are trying to give parents as many options as possible to get access to that library card.
So they can do it digitally.
They can do it digitally or through the paper application that will be sent home. And so we have a QR code that is added to that application because we do understand that in our schools, some of our kids are living with grandparents or in a not tech savvy home environment. And so giving them that paper option is still a necessity, but also trying to make it a little bit easier for parents who just want to scan that code, fill out the application online, a checkbox for them to be able to get a card for themselves, and then they're done, and their card will come to them in the mail.
Yeah, because I mean, now that you can do it digitally,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to get newcomers into the county, a couple of years ago, we made the suggestion, but it wasn't possible technologically at the time. But if you could get just some sort of a little insert, like a bookmark type of thing, and give them to the county DMV people, whoever, was that the tax office that
Yeah.
does
And the
that?
tax collector's office.
Because
Yep.
when everybody goes in to renew their license, or if you're moving in, you have to get a license and a license plate. If you had that little insert and could instruct them to just give it to the person, and if it was really simple and they could take home then and get online and do it, that might bring in some new people.
We are.
Now that you can do, we
yes.
talked about this a couple of years
We'll
ago,
ask.
but you couldn't do it technologically at
It
the
doesn't hurt
time.
to ask.
Yes.
But now, as long as you can have parents do it at home,
Yeah.
this would be a good way
Yes.
to get newcomers.
Our digital option this year is available because of our redesigned website. Our website has expanded digital capabilities for us, and so we are able to utilize some of those newer features and hopefully continually push out information about our libraries that way. So yes, we are always
Yeah.
looking at the digital edition. I
Yes.
will say I think it's a little more scalable for us to try to do it with about 700 possible library card applications from our kindergarteners compared to the sheer number that we could get from the DMV right away.
Well, you wouldn't get that many a
so-
day, though.
Oh, that's good. I think the
wouldn't get
staff
that
would
many a
really
day.
rebel on that one.
Because we're not talking about people who already live here,
I don't go there.
they wouldn't do it. But people moving in would say, oh, yes, this is the, and one of the things I was impressed with when I moved down here is I got my driver's license, I got a license plate for the car, and at the same time, they asked if I was a veteran, so they could record that, and they wanted to know if I wanted to register to vote. So I did everything in the space of 10 minutes through one clerk at a computer. And if you just had some sort of a little insert
Registered library.
that they got with their other things they could take home, then it's up to them. They may not do it, but you may get a certain percentage that would do it.
No, I love the idea. I
So
just have to get
maybe
the tax
If
collector
100
to
people
agree.
come through a day,
Yep.
maybe 10 might respond.
Mm-hmm.
So that wouldn't be an overwhelming
That's not an
amount.
overwhelming number. I think we could handle 10.
I'm not worried about the numbers. We just have to, once we get the
Yeah,
tax
if
collector
you have
to
a
agree.
bunch of them in your backlog until you get around to it.
Oh, we'll get them.
We'll get them.
That's the easy part. Once it's just getting the tax collector to agree to add that to their workflow.
Well, if you
But
provide the
that's
things
who we have to
them,
talk to.
And if you just.
I love
you-
the idea.
You just went and chatted up with the
Mhm.
clerks. Because they're, I found every one of them to be very helpful
Oh, yeah.
and
Yes.
willing to push other services.
Yep.
So why not?
Ms. Warren's staff is fantastic.
Yep.
Over there. Yep.
What is the percentage of our population in Citrus County that have library cards?
Not high enough. Right now, we have about 58,000 in library cards. It fluctuates because we remove expired cards. And we have a population a little over 150,000. So we have some work to do.
And
Our target would be 50%, but that's hard to get to.
Okay.
that's
Because
a
you
moving
have to acquire, we're doing better job of retention through those areas, because that was the phases. First, retention is important. Don't lose library users that just forgot to renew their library card. So through technology, we're getting a little bit better on retention. And then, of course, we can't help it when people move or pass or whatever, but then just getting out into those venues to get people to get their library card and make them aware of it. A lot of it has been, digital awareness has played a role, but hitting anywhere where we don't normally see folks. That's why I like Ken's idea. I remember when you brought it up, just to get them engaged. So that's a goal. It's going to take years to get there, because we are actually doing pretty well on registrations, between 6,000 and 7,000 annually. We've brought that up since COVID. But prior to COVID, the numbers for registration were lower. But we still also remove somewhere between 5,000 or 6,000 cards a year that expire, and they're multi-year expired cards. So there's a balance there. So to get that number up, you see if you're only netting about 2,000 or 3,000 a year, it's going to take a while to get there. But that's why retention is so important, getting them to renew their cards so they don't expire.
How does that compare to other counties? Do you know? Or the state?
It depends. It's a mix. We keep a very accurate database. I would say, not to point out anyone in particular, but not all counties would keep their database as accurate as ours. But they do, if they're doing it properly, required by the state to keep accurate database, because that goes into state aid grant applications and things like that. So, but yeah, 50% is a hard number to hit. Some are much higher depending on their area. So we're going to look and see what are they doing differently. But yeah, I think some of it is standards in reporting. And I'm very proud of ours. We've cleaned it up a lot in the past 5 or 6 years. It's very more accurate now than it's ever been.
I did know when I was online this week that you can renew online.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
everything's getting streamlined.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's very helpful.
Yes. We try to keep it as easy as possible for people to renew. And one of the big things with renewals is phone number and email address changes. So sometimes the email address or phone number that you put in when you originally get your library card isn't necessarily the same one you have 3 years later when we send you that renewal information. So sometimes people get that email or that phone call to renew. Other times they have been using Libby and all of a sudden they're locked out of Libby and they don't know why. It's because they have to update their library card, and then we renew and update that contact information as well. So that's a big part of that every 3-year expiration, is making sure we have accurate contact information for our patrons.
If we look at our account online, does it tell us when our expiration date is?
Yes.
I believe it does, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
That I haven't noticed yet.
I have to go look to see where that is.
I know, I'm like, ooh,
I haven't looked in a
let me
while.
double check again.
Yep.
And we just did an update, and so it's been a,
Well, I
It's
think,
been interesting.
showing the commission when you're asking for a millage rate increase and for the facilities and everything, pointing out how we fit in compared to other comparable Florida counties
Yes.
or not comparable counties, that we are ahead of the game, that and our efforts are huge, and it's
Yes.
part of a literacy and a community-wide, I mean, blah, blah, just fill in blanks, because to me
Absolutely.
that's really important to be able to show how the impact. When I first moved here, I was blown away, still am, with the way in which the staff treat you when you first come in, when you first get that live, in fact, I think it was Taylor that took me around to every book nook and corner of coastal region.
I give a mean library tour.
You
Like,
do?
it's, I'm a pretty good library tour giver. Don't you worry.
So anywho, and she,
Yes.
she didn't know I was going to say that. I didn't know I was going to say that. But anyway, I think it's
all
really
good. Yes.
important.
I would agree. I'm good.
All right.
Done.
Okay, I'm going to run from the podium before I get one more question.
Outstanding.
Okay. Now we're ready for the director's report. Or do you have anything to add to any of that?
I'm going to leave it.
I would
think-
too.
I think we're good.
I think they did good.
How are you
Anything
doing?
I have, I could certainly add to the next meeting, so I will do that.
How are you doing on finding replacement for your administrative assistant?
Oh, we have someone selected. They're going through the process now, so hopefully by the next meeting, we will have a new senior secretary in place.
Very
So-
good. I was worried for you.
Yes, Debbie.
I was just gonna say, you might just wanna do the staff updates.
Yeah, well, it's okay. There's only a couple. I'll be real quick. We did have a promotion. One of our instruction and research librarians got promoted. And so we do have an open instruction and research librarian position. We also have one of our youth services librarians moving over to the school district to be a teacher. So we have an open youth services librarian position. We have, of course, latest position, which we'll be filling hopefully within the next couple of weeks. And we have one open library aide position. So but those two professional librarian positions are tough to fill. We aren't getting the level of applications that we would like to see. But there are some, but we'll, especially with instruction and research is open right now. The youth services will open at the end of the week. So if you know of any librarians around that want to come and live in Citrus and work with us, please let them know that those positions are available, will be posted. So I know that our managers do have some interviews lined up for next week, so we'll see how that goes, and we'll be going from there. So as you guys know, you've been here, you know we've done a lot of hiring from within. We've done that to the degree that we're pretty much, I say it every time, but it's getting thin because a lot of the newer staff are so new, there's not anyone to choose from to hire from within anymore. So we've done a lot of promotional stuff, and so we're struggling just like every other agency that you find out there, finding qualified staff and those that will come to work for Citrus. There's other mitigating factors, which I'll discuss at a later time when it comes to the competition. Sometimes our competition isn't just private sector. Sometimes it's our neighboring counties. So we have to take a look at that from a broader perspective. But that, when I mean broader, that actually comes from the county level on class and pay and all those sorts of things. So that's all being looked into. So we'll hopefully have some better news for that in the future.
Okay. Do we have any old business that needs to be discussed? Okay, do we have any new business? Elaine, you're smiling.
It's a funny question, old business.
Okay, okay, board members, if there's anybody that wants to update us, or just we'll go around and see if there's anything you want to add. Elaine, we'll start with you.
Okay. I just want to say I think that you're doing a great job with keeping these libraries so neat and welcoming. They're always clean, and the people are always smiling, and it's really a pleasure to walk into them. So I just want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
Here, here.
Okay. Carol?
I agree. Yeah, but
And?
No comments.
Okay, great.
I just a note, when I was in the Inverness Library yesterday returning some things and checking something else out, I just was impressed that the gal that was checking me out said, "Oh, do you know that you have 2 holes that are ready to be picked up at the other library?" And I just thought that was pretty good that she was reminding me at another library, because I get around. So, anyway, I
We
just
like
thought
that.
that was good that they
Yes.
brought you update and let you know that something
Beautiful.
else is waiting.
Well, we like to know the system's working. That's that COA system I was telling you about earlier. It lets them know those things. So that's awesome. Great.
Edith?
Well, classes just started at CF, so we're in our busy week, and it looks like the numbers are really good. So back to pre-COVID numbers, so we're happy.
That's good.
Phyllis, anything going on over there?
We're just doing fun in Floral City. We just finished up our summer program and getting ready to start the next big thing.
Johanna?
No updates from me.
Okay. All right, our next meeting will be here, right, on October 18th at 8 o'clock. All right, if there's nothing else that needs to be discussed, I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, and let's, all those in favor? Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.